Her finger came up to her lips before I could say a word. Not a shh, someone might hear us. Slower than that, softer than that. Like she was giving herself permission to say something she'd been holding back for months. We were stuck. Elevator, dead between the 11th and 12th floor, lights buzzing, some stranger near the doors pretending he wasn't listening, and Diane Ferris, my best friend's mother, looked at me like the walls of that elevator were the only place in the world where the truth was allowed out. She was my best friend's mother. I was 29 years old and about to fall in love with her, and neither of us had said that sentence out loud yet. "We have to tell him," she said. I already knew who she meant. I just didn't know which truth she meant, because by that point, there were two. My name is Nate Calloway. I take pictures of the worst days of other people's lives for a living. Wildfires, floods, the kind of news photography where you're standing in someone's ruined kitchen trying to get the light right while they cry behind you. People assume that job makes you cold. It didn't. It just taught me to notice things fast. Who's telling the truth? Who's about to fall apart before they know it themselves? I never thought I'd need that on a Tuesday, in my own building, with a woman who used to pack my school lunches. Josh Ferris has been my best friend since we were 10 years old. We grew up 2 houses apart. His mom, Diane, was the kind of mother who fed the whole street. Casseroles at every funeral. First aid kit for every skinned knee, including mine, including my sister's, including a kid named Petey who wasn't even friends with Josh. He just liked the snacks. Josh's dad left when we were 14. No affair anybody ever heard about, no big blow-up. He just stopped coming home one Sunday. Diane worked 2 jobs for a stretch I don't think Josh ever fully understood, because she made sure he never had to. He got the degree, the job, and 2 years ago, the move to Denver for a promotion he'd worked his whole 20s for. Diane stayed. Different building than the one we grew up near. She downsized after the house got too big and too quiet, but still 4 blocks from where we used to ride bikes. I moved into that same building 8 months before the elevator, mostly for the rent, and mostly, if I'm honest, because it felt good having someone in the building who already knew me. Josh's mom, 3 floors up. Familiar, safe. Nothing complicated about it. That's what I told myself anyway. The elevator stopped on a Thursday in March. She had grocery bags, I had my camera bag, and we got in together without thinking twice, the way you do with someone who used to check your temperature with the back of her hand. The lights flickered, the car dropped an inch, hard enough that an orange rolled out of her bag and hit my foot, then stopped dead, and the emergency light kicked on, dim and yellow. "Well," she said after a second, "this is new." I picked up the orange. "You want to panic first, or should I?" "I already used my panic quota this week. Yours." I hit the call button. Flat voice on the other end. "Maintenance is coming. Could be a while. Remain calm." The usual. I looked at Diane. She didn't look scared. She looked like she was doing quiet math in her head. "You okay?" "I'm fine." A beat. "I've had a long few months, and apparently the universe agrees, because now I'm trapped in a box with my son's best friend." "You say that like it's the worst part of your day." "No," she almost smiled. "That's actually the easy part." I didn't know what she meant yet. It took about 4 hours. We talked. At first, the way you talk to kill time. Work, Josh. A story about Petey and the snacks that made her laugh for real. The first time I'd heard her laugh like that in years. And I noticed it, and I didn't examine why I noticed it. Somewhere around hour 2, the small talk ran out, and neither of us reached for more of it. We just sat there, backs against opposite walls. It wasn't uncomfortable. That surprised me more than anything else that day. "Can I ask you something rude?" "You've fed me more meals than my own mother. You've earned it." "Do you ever get lonely?" Doing what you do, leaving town for the worst week of someone's life, then coming home to an empty apartment? Nobody had asked me that in a long time, not actually wanting the answer. "Yeah, sometimes. I'm good at being around disaster. I'm not always great at being around quiet." She nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something. "Me too. I spent 20 years making sure a house was never quiet. Now it's just me and a house that's too quiet, and everyone assumes I'm fine with that because I've had practice. Are you? Fine with it?" She looked at me a second too long before she answered. I don't know anymore. That's the honest answer. Nothing happened in that elevator. I want to say that plainly, because I know how this sounds, and I know what some of you are already deciding about me. It wasn't two people falling into each other because the lights got dim and the air got thin. It was smaller than that, slower. It was two people telling each other the truth for 6 straight hours because there was nowhere else to put it, and somehow that made it worse later, once I understood what it actually was. Around hour 4, she told me about the business. Her late ex-husband, Josh's father, had left behind a small hardware supply company when he walked out, one he'd built with his brother before the divorce. Diane had quietly kept a stake in it for years, mostly forgotten by everyone except her lawyer. 6 months earlier, the brother wanted to sell. The number that came back was bigger than anyone expected. I could have split it with Josh the second the check cleared, she said. That would have been the simple thing, the right thing probably, to most people. You didn't? I put almost all of it into something else. Something for me. A commercial space downtown. I want to open a bakery, Nate. I've wanted to since before Josh was born, and I've never once said that out loud to anyone who mattered. So tell him. And have him think I stole from him? Do the math on what that stake would have meant to him, and resent me the rest of his life because his mother finally did one thing for herself? I didn't have a good answer for that. He doesn't know any of it? Not even that you kept a stake? He knows the business sold. That's it. Every time I pick up the phone to tell him the rest, I lose my nerve. Diane. I know? You have to tell him. Something shifted in her face, just slightly, like she'd heard 2 sentences inside the one I'd said. I didn't understand that look yet. I would, eventually, and it would take me longer than it should have. They got the doors open a little after 7 that evening. Josh called that night, like he did most weeks, and I almost told him everything right then. I didn't. I told myself it wasn't my secret to tell. That part was true. It wasn't the whole reason. The whole reason was that I couldn't stop thinking about a woman 4 blocks away who I had, until that Thursday, only ever thought of as somebody's mother. I ran the tape back so many times afterward looking for the one clean moment it started, and there wasn't one. There was just an accumulation. Tuesday coffees that got longer, a plate she started saving me when she cooked too much, a version of loneliness in both of us that recognized itself in the other person before either of us had the nerve to name it out loud. By May, we weren't hiding anything exactly. We also weren't telling anyone anything. I'd like to tell you I saw the difference between those 2 things clearly at the time. I didn't. I saw it in hindsight, which is a coward's kind of clarity. Josh flew in for the 4th of July. Barbecue at Diane's. The 3 of us, plus a couple neighbors, same as every year since we were kids. Except this year I kept catching myself watching the door for her, and she kept finding reasons to stand near me at the grill, and Josh has known me since we were 10. He doesn't miss things. He just usually gives people a long runway before he says anything about what he's noticed. He waited until the sun went down, pulled me aside by the cooler, hand not quite on my shoulder, more like he was steering without touching. You and my mom seem close lately. We're neighbors. We talk. Nate. Just my name. That was somehow worse than a real accusation. It's not what you think, I said, which is exactly what people say right before it turns out to be precisely what the other person thinks. He set his beer down on the cooler lid, slow, deliberate, like he needed his hands free for something and didn't know yet what. Then tell me what it is, because from where I'm standing, my best friend has feelings for my mother, and neither of you said one word to me about it. Not one. All summer. I didn't know how to. You had a whole summer to figure it out. I didn't argue that. There wasn't an argument. Does she feel the same way? He asked. Or is this a you problem I'm about to make her carry? That one landed harder than I expected. I don't know, I said, which was a lie, and I think he heard it as one, because his jaw tightened. Don't do that. Don't stand here and pretend you're not sure. You're sure. I've known you 19 years. I know what you look like when you're sure of something. Somebody's kid ran past us chasing a sparkler, and we both went quiet for a second, and then he said, "Quieter." She raised me alone, Nate. No help. No second husband stepping in. 20 years of putting me first every single time, and the first time she gets to want something for herself, it's my best friend. That's not fair to either of us. Maybe not. Doesn't make it not true. I know I should have said something before you had to ask. Yeah, Josh said. You should have. He didn't yell. I almost wish he had. He just picked his beer back up, looked at the house where his mother was pretending to refill a chip bowl she'd already refilled twice, and said, I need time, and walked back inside like the conversation had cost him something physical. I've asked myself the same question 100 times since that night, and I still don't have a clean answer, so I'll just ask you. If your best friend started falling for your mother, a woman who raised him alone, who never remarried, who spent 2 decades putting everyone else first and finally wanted one thing for herself, is that a betrayal? Or is it your friend finally noticing a person everyone else stopped seeing years ago? My sister told me I was out of line before I'd even finished the sentence. My oldest friend from college told me people don't get to pick who they fall for, and Josh didn't get a veto just because the math made him uncomfortable. I still don't know which one of them is right. Maybe neither. Maybe both. I know what Josh believed, standing by that cooler. For a while, I understood exactly why. Diane found out he knew that same night. He told her before he told me he was going to. She called me a little after 11. Her voice was doing the thing it did in the elevator back in March. The careful, level thing people do right before they fall apart. He's not really speaking to me. He said he needs time. I'm sorry. I should have handled it differently. You didn't handle it wrong. We both just handled it late. Long pause. There's something else. What? I told him about the bakery, the money, all of it. Figured if I was already losing him over one secret, I might as well stop keeping the other. How'd he take it? Quieter than I expected. I think the two together were almost easier to hold than either one alone. Like at least now he understood why I'd been so distracted this year. He just didn't like finding out this way. Neither did I. I thought about the elevator, her finger against her lips, that first quiet version of, we have to tell him. And how I'd assumed she only ever meant the money. I should have said something myself back in the summer, I told her. The barbecue wasn't the first time I thought about it. It was just the first time I ran out of ways to avoid it. I know, she said. Me too. Josh needed 6 weeks before he called me back. He didn't apologize, and I didn't expect him to. He asked one question. Do you actually love her? Or did this happen because it was easy? Because she was right there, and you were lonely, and it felt simpler than starting over with somebody new? It's the fairest question anyone's asked me, and I owe him the same honest answer I'll give you now. I didn't know, in March. I do now. It wasn't simple and it wasn't easy, and if it had been either of those things, I think I'd have walked away the first week, back when walking away still would have cost me almost nothing. I love her, I told him. I'm not asking you to be fine with that today. I'm asking you to believe neither of us set out to hurt you. Long silence on the line. I need to see you both, he finally said. In person, not on the phone. We met at Diane's kitchen table in September. The conversation all three of us should have had 5 months earlier. Josh asked his mother if she was happy. Not comfortable. Happy. She told him the truth. That she was. More than she'd let herself be in a long time. And that she was sorry it had cost his trust. And that she'd been so careful for his sake for so long, she'd nearly forgotten how to want anything for herself. He asked me if I understood what I was taking on. A woman with a whole life already built, a son my own age, a history I'd only ever be a visitor in. I told him I did, and that I wasn't trying to replace anything, and that pretending I didn't feel what I felt wasn't protecting him from anything. It was just protecting me from a hard conversation. Nobody hugged it out. Josh left that dinner still unsure and told us so, plainly. But he also said he'd rather know the truth and be unsure than keep being lied to by 2 people he loved. That felt like the start of something instead of the end of it. Barely. But it did. It's been over a year now. Josh and I talk most weeks again, though there's a version of easy between us now that took real work to rebuild instead of just showing up on its own. He flew home for Diane's bakery opening in the spring, the one she almost didn't tell him about at all. and stood in the back with his arms crossed for 20 minutes before his mother handed him an apron and put him to work behind the counter, because apparently, even at 31, you don't get to skip your mother's orders. Diane and I don't hide anything now. That's the actual difference, if you want the short version. Not the feelings. Those existed long before either of us said them out loud. It was the silence in between that did the damage, not the elevator. Not the age gap or what the neighbors think or what strangers reading this are about to think. The silence. Right now, tonight, she's 3 floors up, closing out the bakery's register, probably underpaying herself for hours she won't log. I'll go up in a few minutes and she'll hand me whatever didn't sell, and we won't make a thing of it, because most of our life together now isn't a thing. It's just Tuesday. But I still think about that stuck elevator more than I probably should. 6 hours, 2 secrets, 1 woman, with her finger to her lips, giving herself permission to finally say the sentence she'd been circling for months. If it had been you in that elevator, would you have said something sooner? Or would you have stayed quiet too, and told yourself it wasn't a lie yet, just a truth you hadn't gotten around to?